Busisiwe Alant says, thanks for an informative presentation, Ms. Mbanga. What is the status quo with respect to energy efficiency at HEIs? Is there any available data on this? I assume that's higher education institutions?
Yes, I wanted to ask if we can confirm that she is talking about higher education institutions. Yes. Is there a way to indicate? Because that will provide a lot of context.
Indeed.
In any case, we do have the regulation on EPCs that is looking at buildings. Currently, it's looking at new buildings, and so that is a limitation in terms of buildings that have been established over many years ago. And I think that's normally the case with higher education institutions. But with public information available and having what we call an EXCO register, where we do have energy service companies, data to improve your energy efficiency in buildings is readily accessible through these professionals that audit your building and energy use. And I think most facilities managers, despite the type of facility you're operating, because I posed a similar question, but speaking specifically about hotels, because the hospitality sector uses up a lot of electricity. And so there is information on how we can implement energy efficiency interventions within all types of buildings, whether it be HVAC, lighting, appliances and tools that we use in the actual buildings, even right from construction and architecture, actually. So I think there is a requirement for integrated policy development from the green building side to energy policies, as well as construction standards, if we're going to achieve, realizing energy efficiency intervention in all types of buildings. So that is a really fantastic question, and thank you so much for that. I don't have exact statistics for the higher institution buildings, but I can point you to a colleague who's specifically working on the energy performance standards within buildings. If you can pop me an email, I did share my email address in the first slide. I'll just reflect that again, and then I'll be happy to direct you to somebody who may have more data on the question that you've posed. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Ms. Aland, did you get your answer? I have.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Yancy. And thanks, Ms. Mbanga.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay. Mwazvita Machikonye says, thank you for the presentation. It was very insightful. My question is regarding whether the labels of energy efficiency consider the lifetime of the appliance. Following the label, I also wanted to ask if there have been any initiatives to allow trading in of appliances for newer, more energy efficient appliances at the end of life of appliances to keep the costs down for both consumers and producers in a recycling loop. What a great idea.
Yes, that is a fantastic idea. So I'll respond to the first question, which speaks to the life cycle of appliances. Very good question. The Standards Bureau, actually the South African Bureau of Standards does what we call intensive testing on products before we qualify them in terms of their energy rating and even give them a letter of authority to be able to trade the products in the country. So that's part and parcel of the regulatory process. And what that intensive testing does is actually exhaust the product to the end of its life. So it may be over a 2-week period, but it does the testing at an intense level and then considers the depreciation of the appliance over time. So to answer your question, yes, when we are testing these appliances for their energy consumption, we do take into account the entire life cycle of the actual product. Then on to your question about trade-ins or recycling, I think e-waste is such a crucial part of the work that we do. And we've actually concluded a pilot study in 2019 looking at how we can get an e-waste recycling system in South Africa. And so we're looking to further explore that work because the feasibility study did recommend that it is feasible. We've just selected a model that is allowing us to work with a number of stakeholders to be able to realize a pilot project around this. Although there are 2 licensed facilities in South Africa that can process all types of e-waste. One is in Pietermaritzburg and the other in Kempton Park. And so there does need to be more awareness created about where consumers can take their goods to be recycled. Currently, we do not have an incentive scheme that allows consumers to trade an old appliance in for a new one, where they would be discounted. This is something that is being talked about with the producer responsible organizations, or what we call extended producer responsibility representatives. So these are all the manufacturers of appliances that come together. They have to pay a levy that then goes to the recycling aspect of their products that have come to end of life. So globally, we currently generate about 61 million tons of e-waste. That's a lot. It's about 8 kilograms per person. And only about 18%, conference I attended last week, they confirmed 82% of e-waste lands up in landfill, and only 18% is actually recycled. So we need to create more awareness in this area. It's crucial that South Africans know where to take their e-waste. So we're putting in place all the tools and the communications to be able to input that information. So even with the design of the new label, there's an opportunity there to create awareness of where you take your old appliance as you're shopping for a new one.
That is brilliant. I'm so glad to hear that. Wow.
Thank you.
Dr. Titus Mate said, well done, Ashanti. Also.
Oh, thank you. That's my boss.
that helps.
So much,
Good. Thanks, Dr. Mate. From John Egan. John, I've unmuted you. Well, no, you still have to unmute yourself, but I've allowed you to speak. We will be watching that space eagerly for some more information on developments. It certainly seems that there are very positive developments and greater awareness of how important energy efficiency is. I just wish somebody would invent a gadget for the streetlights, because they are always on, as far as I can see, always on, and then during load shedding they aren't. I mean, they're on during the day. So I think there's a lot of inefficiencies actually that are going on at municipal level, and I am hoping that there will be some improvement there. All right.
Yancy?
Yes.
I think you've made a very interesting comment, and maybe it's just an educational opportunity.
Sure.
The city of Cape Town had actually published an article about exactly what you're saying. So people had shared their concerns about the inefficiency of having street lights on for the entire day.
Yeah.
And there's an article out, you can search for it, and it speaks to how they did an assessment comparing the cost of having the infrastructure stolen, which was a huge challenge that they were currently faced with, and keeping the lights on, because when you keep the street lights on, they are not vandalized or stolen, because then it's a risk for the person that's tampering with the infrastructure to tamper with it while the lights are on. Of course, it's not the best way to do it, but we do have a very huge challenge in South Africa when it comes to the vandalism and theft of newer technology infrastructure. And we experience this in the energy efficiency sector, because as you try to improve things, solar panels and so forth are getting stolen. And so I found this perspective quite interesting. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, But I thought that article was helpful to make people understand as to why they have chosen to go that route, because it costs the city more to lose the infrastructure rather than to pay for the energy to keep the lights on.
Very interesting indeed. All right. I'll if it's done on purpose, I don't mind. Okay. Any other questions? Any questions to our previous speakers? To Huse Malesh. She is still with us. I don't know if the other speakers are. But please, if you have any questions for her, let me go back and see what we have skipped. Yes, from Lusani Mulawutsi. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Mbanga. I have noticed that generally, with regards to increasing the contribution of renewables to the energy baseline, biomass seems to either be allocated or getting a small share of that. I would be interested in finding out why that is, a perspective from the implementation side. That's an interesting question because we haven't touched on biomass at all in these 2 days. Would you like to answer?
I can respond to say that perhaps the renewables energy department within our organization may be better suited to respond to that question. Again, I'm happy to link anyone who is more interested to my colleague, Dr. Sarich, who specializes in that area. I wouldn't want to respond out of not having sufficient information for your question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ashanti. Huse.
So in terms of allocation of renewable energy, in the past, when the biomass was not allocated, but it's not limited per se. It's just that in the large scale renewable energy IPP procurement program, there are limited projects that apply. I did work with the IDC, and I supported one of the projects that was in the in using what do you call wood as one of the projects that was successful. But there are also a number of projects that I think Sanedi, when the relevant person, probably we should share some notes on this, because there are a lot of biomass projects that have had problems in South Africa from a commercial sustainability point of view. And so I think that is slightly discouraging in the market in terms of supporting new ones. And I think that from a research point of view, there's probably a good reason to get together both on the technical, but I think mostly on the commercial side, to inform the market what are the issues that trip these types of projects. Thank you.
That should be very interesting because, of course, biomass can actually address waste as well, can't it? So converting gas to waste to energy.
And the technology is feasible elsewhere. It's just that we are tripping here in South Africa.
Right. Very interesting. That is something to follow up at some stage. Dr. Marty says, Jesse, have you considered modeling retrofitting existing coal plants with CCUS, FGD, low NOx, etc.? The byproducts from these clean coal abatement technologies are of high value and can be sold to, it can be sold. I'm sorry. Anyway, can you see the can be sold to generate income and can offset the retrofitting costs. Ashanti, would you like to answer that? No, sorry, this is Jessie. Jessie
Yes, I
Burt.
was just about to say, I think it's directed at a different speaker. Thank you.
Jessie, are you still with us? I don't see her in the Zoom. Then a question for Hussein. Solar or wind new build must also go with building ancillary services capacity. Is this being considered in the IRP 2023 revision?
I can only say I hope so. I am not yet certain, but I
Right.
hope so.
Okay. Yes, that's an interesting one. I don't know if anyone else can answer that. Lusani Molotse says, thank you. Yes, the links to the people working with biomass on the commercial side will be highly appreciated. Okay, so do be in touch with each other. I think I've got all the questions there. If I haven't answered your question, please put your hand up. So, coming to the end of our session, the transitions that we've looked at have been indeed very substantial. A lot has to happen in terms of planning, funding, and implementation. And it's certainly a long road that lies ahead. We've looked at a transition that includes nuclear as a component, and that is certainly still in the planning, and the argument for that is compelling. From Jessie Burton, we had very interesting talk on the modeling of the energy landscape, and these models seem to be extremely useful in terms of doing detailed planning, which is key if we are to do things successfully and within a reasonable time frame. So we've got the tools, is my impression, that we've got the tools in order to manage these transitions effectively and efficiently. And I certainly hope that they will be used by government going forward. From Ms. Gusi Malesh, we had an overview of the electricity market and the regulatory environment of the electricity market, and that is a legal and regulatory transition that needs to be gone through, or transitions, because it is extremely complex. But we are on our way, and would like to watch that space and see what happens going forward, what happens with the IRP 2023. Definitely we'll be watching that next week, but also what happens in terms of implementing the regulations that are required, or promulgating the regulations that are required and then implementing them. And then from Ms. Ashanti Manga from Sanedi, we heard about everything that Sanedi is doing in terms of energy efficiency. And I was very pleased to hear that there is a national energy efficiency strategy, it has been around for a very long time, and there have been targets in terms of energy efficiency. It's also heartening to know that there has been progress in various sectors in terms of energy efficiency. So in all these transitions that we're going through, the energy efficiency should be monitored as well, and assessed before changes are made. It seems to me that there's a need for public awareness when it comes to energy efficiency. So it would be good if NSDF can do our little bit for that and place something in our newsletter to encourage energy efficiency and raise awareness. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending this discussion forum today, and possibly you were here yesterday as well. I hope that you got a lot of information and insight from it. Please watch your inbox for the NSDF e-newsletter, where we will be announcing what is available on the website in connection with this discussion forum, particularly the media release, which is an article summarizing the various issues that are discussed. Colette, who is here in the Zoom, is compiling that for us. So please have a look, keep an eye out for that. Everything will be on the website. There will be proceedings and videos, slideshows, and the media release. Thank you very much to all our presenters. I really appreciate your taking the time and agreeing to work with us on this. And I know that our attendees gained a lot from your sharing. And with that, I close this discussion forum, and I wish you a good day, and I wish you a good week in terms of energy supply. And let's hope that the lull in load shedding continues for a while longer. Keep well.